Want to get into the Word together? We're looking at Acts chapter 2. This is a little different because this is the climax of a study that we've been doing that we kind of set aside for the Easter time and crucifixion time. And so for about 3 weeks we haven't been looking at this. And there's only one more study in this series that we've been doing as we look at Acts chapter 2, verse 40 down through verse 47. So this is the climax. Next Sunday, we'll be starting a new series, so we'll warn you about that. And you could be studying the passage, if you would, reading it through the week, praying over it, and seeing if the Lord could do something new in our lives. The new study will be found in Matthew chapter 4. The actual verses are 18 down through verse 22. So we'll begin a series of messages on Sunday morning on that study. Matthew chapter 4, verse 18. It's the calling of the disciples. 4 of them are called in 2 different settings. And they immediately followed and immediately put their boat and net aside and followed Jesus. They've been called to be fishers of men. And we're going to get into that passage heavy. So be thinking about that, praying about it. But today we want to finish out Acts chapter 2, verse 40 through 47. And I know you've forgotten everything I've said about all we've already done, so I'm going to have to say it all over again in a long period of time. But I want to read the whole passage, which begins in verse 40, Acts chapter 2, verse 40. And with many other words, he testified and exhorted them, saying, "Be saved from this perverse generation." Then those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. Then fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done through the apostles. Now all who believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods and divided them among all as anyone had needed. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God, having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. We're focusing on, and the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. Context is important. Pentecost has taken place. The outside God has come to live inside. Verse 1 through 4. Jesus died, rose from the dead, ascended to the right hand of the Father, received the promise from the Father to pour that all over us so that the outside God could get inside. It's what Christianity is all about. The defining factor between Christian and non-Christian is the indwelling of the person of God within you. The Spirit of Jesus actually indwelling you. When you have him, you're in. When you don't, you're out of here. Everything hangs on that. The indwelling of the Spirit of Jesus. That's fundamental. That's basic. Our heart's desire for everyone, I'm talking everyone, would be that you would know the intimacy of the reality of Jesus in your life and be sourced by him. Please do not live out of your stupidity. I know it's huge, but please don't live out of your stupidity. Oh, please live out of his wisdom. Please don't live out of your weakness. We've seen how weak you are. Please don't live out of his weakness. Oh, live out of his strength. I can testify about weakness. I can testify about stupidity. Oh, come on. I want to live in the sourcing of the Spirit of God. That's Pentecost. 3,000 to 5,000 Jews are hanging around watching while 120 people receive this for the first time. And while they're hanging around watching this whole thing, they're amazed, saying, "What on earth is going on?" Peter stands up and preaches this phenomenal sermon, giving explanation to what's going on. His explanation is Jesus. Are you surprised? He talks nothing but about Jesus. Jesus, more Jesus. What was going on in Jesus the man is now what can go on in you. The same identical Spirit that lived in Jesus can now live in you. What God did in and through Jesus, he wants to do in and through you. You can have all that was on in Jesus all of that can go on in you. That's His promise. That's the fullness of the Spirit. That's normal Christianity. That's the average. And Peter explained this in a sermon. When they found out, the Jews, these 3,000 to 5,000 Jews, found that out, they were cut to the bone because they had obviously crucified Christ. They cried out, "What shall we do?" Peter said, "Isn't anything you can do except, hey, surrender, respond. You crucified Him, embrace Him now and let Him do something in you." So now they've decided to embrace Christ. They have joined the church. Now the title of this whole series was the idea of subtraction and addition. They were subtracted out of their cultural environment, their cultural standards, their cultural thought process. They were yanked out of that. They were added now to the church, as it says in the verse that we're dealing with. What was that like? What was going on as they were added to the church? I want to talk to you about something. There was this couple that we knew in Illinois, and they started attending the church. They went every Sunday, got involved in the fellowships. They had some suppers, and they got involved in that. And this couple really became active in the church for about 4 or 5 months. And during that period of time, they seemed to fit in, seemed to be good. One Sunday, they didn't come back. Another Sunday, they didn't come back. Another Sunday, they didn't come back. Pastor got concerned. Obviously, there's something wrong. Something's happened. Wonder what it is. Why aren't they coming? So we pastors, we get bugged about that kind of thing and say, hey, we got to find out. So the pastor went to call on them. And when he went to call on them, he sat in their living room and said, noticed you haven't been coming back. Yeah, Pastor, we're going to another church over here. And, of course, he couldn't let that alone. He said, well, I want you to be brutally honest with me because it would help us in our church. I'd like to know why you're not coming back. Well, they hem-hauled around a little bit. They didn't want to. Finally, he pressed them. Finally, they got honest and said, to tell you the truth, in all the fellowship, in all the services, and all the discussions, and all the fellowship after the services, and all the times that we've been together with your people, we just don't fit. Your congregation is all in management. They talk about sales. They talk about corporate stuff. They talk about playing golf. We don't play golf. They talk about their golf scores. We're not in any of that. And we just didn't have anything. Your people are great. They're friendly. But we just don't. I discovered in church growth, there is a church growth principle. Church growth doesn't say this is right or wrong. Church growth says we have observed the churches that are growing. And we have observed a principle, several principles, but one principle that seems to be characteristic of every church that is growing is that you grow when you minister to your own kind. So if you are upper middle class church, you need to minister to upper middle class. If you're lower class, you need to minister to lower class. Wherever you fit in the society structure, you need to go after that level. Now, I want you to take that concept, the story I just told you, the concept, I want you to bring it into our passage. Do you know who was in this group? Oh, mercy. You get a little insight as you back up into chapter 1, verse 14, that you got the 120 in this upper room. This is before Pentecost. And it says, now keep in mind that culture of that day, they were with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women. The women were even included. Woo! Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there. Wow. In that culture, they had a voice in the church. Whoa. They were recognized as important. Wow. In that 120, there were the 12 apostles. We know about them, 11 of them at least. They were all from Galilee, and they were fishermen. They had dirt under their fingernails. They were a bunch of, well, the best they ever got done was reading comic books. That was their level. As you begin to walk through the 120 that was in that upper room, the diversity. Oh, wait a minute. Bring this 3,000 people in now. They've just been converted, and they've been brought into the fellowship, and they're a part of the church. Do you know about the 3,000? Well, sure you do. Look at chapter 2. Look at verse 9 down through verse 11. There are 15 different nationalities represented. Oh, brother. All kinds of colors. I mean, all kinds of dialects. All kinds of, hairdos. Oh, mercy. All kinds of different dress. Can you imagine trying to have a supper and satisfy everybody from all of those countries? Oh, brother. The difference between those people, the kind of culture, the kind of customs, the kind of mannerisms, the way they talk, you have to ask the guy to repeat himself 3 or 4 times because you can't understand his accent. He isn't from the South. Think of the overwhelming diversity among this group right here. On top of that, if you think of all the diversity that's within that group, I want you to begin with me at verse 46, chapter 2, and I want you to walk through that verse with me, and let's see how he literally describes this group, what was going on with this group, with all of this diversity. He starts out in verse 46 by saying, so continuing daily with one accord. You remember the Greek word for one accord, 2 words put together. It means together with heavy breathing. It's the word passion. It's where they get where we get our word passion. It's this hot. I'm steaming. I'm boiling. There's this thing inside. I'm just excited. I'm all wrapped up in. Here was 3,120 people from 15 different nationalities, all the way from Galilee to the low class to the high class. There were rich folks here. There were people that had homes. There were people that didn't have homes. There was all this different diversity among these people, educated and uneducated. There was this whole entire group, and they were all together with this common burn. Well, what was this burn all about? They all got wrapped up in Jesus. Somehow Jesus had captivated every single one of them. Suddenly Jesus had come to live within them. The Spirit of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, had literally indwelt them, and they began to burn with it. And it seemed like it didn't matter that your hairdo isn't like mine. Oh, good night, you got whiskers, I don't. Well, forevermore, if I could grow them, I would. Forevermore, isn't this something? And none of that mattered anymore. In fact, as you go on in the verse, you'll see that it says they were in the temple. So continuing daily with one accord, in the temple. What's the temple all about? Well, that's the Jewish thing. Well, yeah, they were Jews, so they went to the temple. Well, sure, they didn't give up their culture. Nobody's asking anybody to take their past and just dump it. You think it's inappropriate to scratch your nose in public? Fine, don't scratch your nose then, but let me scratch mine. Because when one my size itches, you got to scratch it. So they didn't give aside their culture. They didn't give up their cultural environment. They didn't give up their cultural activities. They didn't give up the way they had been raised. They didn't give that up. They maintained that. In fact, it's interesting, the temple became the field of evangelism. The reason they went to the temple, that's where everybody was. And they went down and hung around the temple and witnessed and testified and praised God. And that was the area of witnessing. You'll note also in verse 46, it says that they were breaking bread from house to house. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house. So they didn't sell their homes. This was not communal living. They kept their homes. In fact, that was where they had fellowship. So the temple was the place of evangelism. The homes were the place of fellowship and embracing one another. Now, the 3,000, you remember, from of the 15 different dialects, they're visiting Jerusalem. Most of them would not have had homes. So the people that did have homes opened up their homes to all of these different nationalities. And the diversity of that, wow. In fact, in verse 46, he goes on to say that continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness. Gladness is a phenomenal word in the Greek language. Gladness literally has the idea of inner joy, but it's not just inner joy. It's inner joy that gives forth with physical expression. I've watched you guys eat. I've even heard you eat. So this is really, we're in on this one. They literally expressed this joy, and there was this excitement and this expression. In fact, you could call it jubilance. You could call it excellence. You could call it giving yourself. It was a flow of the joy and the praise that had gripped them inside, and they couldn't keep it. In fact, you'll note in verse 46 it says, so continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart. Simplicity, only time in the whole scriptures that word is used. Describing this group. It literally has the idea of smooth, without obstacle. It was the picture of a field, for instance, that had no rocks in it. That was the condition of their lives. All the obstacles have been down. All the suspicions were removed. All the pickiness had been taken away. There was a smoothness within the group, and the attitude of the group. There was a confidence because they had somehow been welded together in the wonder of Jesus, and all the kinds of things that became suspicious because of the diversities, and you're not like I am, and you're from there and I'm not from there, and this is the way you talk and I don't talk that way. All that stuff was gone because there was a smoothness with no hostility and no obstacles and no blockades in their relationships. Note also what that produced in verse 46, moving into verse 47. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor. The Greek word for favor there is the same Greek word as grace. The grace of God. Having grace with all the people. It's interesting, in the Greek language, there's two words for good. Two different Greek words for good. One Greek word identifies a thing as good. That thing is good, has the quality of goodness. The second Greek word identifies the object as good. Its quality is good, but goes on to say, oh, it looks good too. See, it's one thing to be good. It's another thing to be good and look like it. Have you seen people down at the church that, we're good? Oh, they're good. Oh, they come to church every Sunday. Oh, they're honest. Oh, yeah, they'd help you if you ask them. Oh, yeah, they tithe their money. Well, they're good. Well, would you like to be like them? No. They're good, but there's nothing winsome about them. There's nothing that allures me to them. There's nothing that says, oh, I wish I had what they have. This group not only was good, but they had this inside thing that was you were drawn to them. Oh, man. Shouldn't the Spirit of God do that in our lives? So get the picture. Here's all of this diversity, 15 different nationalities, 15 different dialects, all these custom and culture. There's all the way from the rich and all the way to the poor. There's educated and non-educated. There's all colors of skin. There's all kinds of different cultures and environments. And somehow they've all been brought together in this one passion, this one burn. They go in the temple. They're using it as a field of evangelism. They're eating from house to house. It's their fellowship time. And they're really getting into connecting with each other's lives. In fact, there's this gladness that burns in their bones and just spills out of their lives, and they just can't help themselves. In fact, there's a removal of all the rocks and all the obstacles, and the attitude and flow of the group is so smooth that when you look at it, you say, man, I wish I could be in there. I think church growth is wrong. I think a church full of management that talks about golf scores has no sensitivity to the need of their world. I think a group of people who aren't bad, they're good, but they somehow haven't connected with the Spirit of God that allows the walls to come down until there's no division among us. See, I think that's what's going on here. Now, what's really interesting in the whole passage then is that after you go through all of this diversity and the differences that was going on, and yet all of that was broken down by the indwelling of the Spirit of God. Once you've gone through all of that and you find this grace and this embracing, and everybody feels wanted and needed, and we're drawing them all in. After you get that, you discover he comes up with this climactic statement. Look at this thing. Verse 47 in. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. Let's go after that. Number one, prime mover. I don't want this to be tedious for you, but the first word in the sentence is the word the or the. It's the article, ho, in the Greek. It's the first word. It's making it specific. See, in the Greek language, it's just not a Lord did this. It's just not some Lord did this. It's the Lord. The Lord. Well, what Lord you talking about? Well, what have we been talking about for the last chapter? Every verse has been about this Jesus who's pulled this whole thing off. That's what we've been talking about. So it's this Jesus who is the absolute prime mover. Now, it's also interesting that the second word in the Greek language in this sentence is the word and, translated and, which is really de, which is really a contrasting, more than a linkage, it's a contrasting word. So what you've got is a contrast being set up. Over here on this side is everything that was going on within the group, all that was taking place, all the oneness that they had, the one accord stuff, all the gladness, simplicity of heart, all of that was going. Hey, they were finding favor. There was a winsomeness about them. The whole community loved them. Everybody was buying into this because of what was going on in their lives. They were so expressive with it. Everybody in the community thought this was great. That's on one side. Contrasted with that now is what God is doing to the group itself. Obviously, God was producing this in their lives, but that was spilling through them. Now, behind the scenes, he says, I want to talk to you about what God was actually doing in the undercurrent of the group itself. So he sets up that contrast. And then the third word is the word Lord, which of course is the subject of the whole sentence. So what you've got is the prime mover, the one who is responsible for this whole thing. The only explanation for what's going on in this group, the only thing you can say about it is, Jesus. I crave for our church to be The only way you can explain what's going on down there is Jesus. I mean, they're all a bunch of misfits. I mean, those guys, whoa. And some are rich and some are poor. There's no way to explain how on earth could you ever get a group like that together? And how could it ever work? Well, Jesus, I guess. And the only way to explain the whole thing is that there is a movement of God taking place. And Jesus is doing something that is so phenomenal and so big and so great that it's literally reaching out into the community and affecting it's a winsomeness, and everybody says, wow. He's the prime mover. And I want to propose to you everything that can be explained in terms of our talent, everything that can be explained in terms of our money, everything that can be explained in terms of our building, everything that can be explained in terms of our programming, everything that can be explained in terms of our personality, everything that can be explained in terms of our talent. I think you'd call it sin. Because it would be self-sourced. So the whole undertow of what's happening in the passage and in the early church is, there's this supreme, prime mover, God. The Spirit of Jesus has literally penetrated their lives and don't you want a life like that? It can only be explained in terms of Jesus. Well, yeah, I reformed, slapped my hands, bit my lip through. Yeah, I conquered that thing. What are you talking about? Jesus came. Jesus came. He's the prime mover. Now, you'll note in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, it's a phenomenal passage. It's really an interesting passage. The disciples are being presented with the question, who do you say that I am? And of course Peter comes forth and says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus is just absolutely amazed that Peter came up with that. In fact, he was so amazed, he said, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, flesh and blood hasn't revealed this to you. You didn't get this from downtown. You haven't been listening to the rumors of man. You've been clued into the very mind and the heart of God. God spoke this to you. That's why you know I'm the Christ, the Son of the living God. And in fact, he said, Peter, I'm gonna build my church on this kind of confession, man. This is solid. This business of getting into the mind of God and letting the mind of God determine your thinking, that is so powerful and such an essence in Christianity. I'm going to build the church on that. And he says in this verse, I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock, the rock of your confession, I will build my church, and the gates of hell and Hades shall not prevail against it. Did you note the word my? My church. You know how few times in the gospel writings the word church is used? In fact, in Matthew, this is the first time it ever shows up, and it doesn't show up much after that. The church is hardly ever mentioned in the Gospels, but when Jesus does mention it, it's my church. Why? He's the prime mover. Don't you ever forget this. Oh, please remind me. This is not my church. This is his church. Well, this is the way I like it, and it's my church. No, it's not, and we don't care how you like it. Because this is not for you. This is for our community. Hey, if it takes having a service at 7 o'clock to get the community, let's do it. If to win our community and win our world, if it takes all of us standing on our head when we greet, let's do it. Whatever it takes, I don't care. Because it's not my church. This is not my deal. This is not your deal. Do you know what a relief that is? Takes all the pressure off. It's not mine anyhow. Well, what about such and such? Hey, I don't know. It's none of my business. It's not my church. Whoa! That is relaxing, isn't it? Well, what about the pressure? What pressure? It's not my church. See, the minute it becomes mine, it eats my lunch. The minute it becomes mine, I got to beat you guys. I got to whip you in line. I got to get you shaped up. Come on, move it, move it, move it. Let's get the work done. What are you doing? Hey, it's not my church. Whew. I'm so relaxed, I'm nearly asleep. Wow, that's wonderful, isn't it? Isn't that great? That eliminates all the pressure because he is the prime mover. And man, if you don't have that, in fact, it's not just in the church. Come on, that's in your life. Well, it's my life. Then I'd get rid of it because you've done a mess of it anyhow. I wouldn't claim my life anymore. I'd give that thing up and don't have a life. Just have him and let him have a life, which is the basis of all of Christianity, that I don't live my life, he lives his life. And somehow, in the dynamic of his grace, I was built to be filled with him, and in the fullness of his being, the unit that takes place out of that begins to be all that I was built to be. I wasn't built to live on my own. I was built to be dependent upon him. And in that dependency, he can do something through me I can't do. Wow. So it's not my life. No wonder this outfit had gladness. I would do it to you. Wow. Now, as you move into the verb in the sentence, and the Lord added, the verb is added, obviously, and it's in the present tense. It's a phenomenal Greek word, the word added. It's in the indicative, which means it's a simple statement of fact, so there's no argument. It's in the imperfect. I know you get really off on this stuff. It's imperfect, which means it keeps on going. It's happened in the past and has continual action into the present and future. And it's in the active voice, which means the Lord is responsible for the action of the adding. So the prime mover, the Lord, is doing the adding, and he just keeps on adding. Well, who is he adding? Well, he tells you at the end of the statement, those who are being saved. Those who are being saved. Now, that's two Greek words. The saved is actually what it says. And you know the idea of being saved is to be rescued from some overwhelming dilemma or peril. It's the way the word is used, so. This group had literally crucified their Messiah. Peter is preaching, convinces them of that. That is, the Holy Spirit, through Peter, literally convinces them of the truth that they have literally stood in the way of what they've dreamed for all of their lives. Do you see any parallel with that in your life? What you've dreamed about for your life all of these days, all of your life, you've dreamed of this for your life. You've stood in the way of that. You nailed that. The only possibility you had for that, you nailed. You identify with that at all? Wow. Once they were convinced of that, I'm in an overwhelming peril. I am damned. I have no chance. I have no way out. I am absolutely, oh my, I'm not going to make it. I've gone too far. I've done too much. I'm striking that line through my name. I'm gone. And Jesus came and rescued me from that peril. We call that the saved because I've been rescued. And he is the prime mover that rescued me. Now, the verb tense is a little misleading because it's present tense. It's present tense, but here's what's important about present tense in the Greek language. In the Greek language, the present tense is now with continual action. In other words, I'm saved now, yeah. Whoops, another second went by. Well, I'm saved in that second too. Whoops, another second went by. I'm saved in that second too. Whoops, another second went by. I'm saved in that second too. In fact, the whole year went by. Saved in the whole year. Whoa! So it has this continual state is existing. This continual state is existing in my life as I move from one second to another second to another second. So it's continual, but it's always now. Does that make any sense? So I'm living in the now, and the now keeps moving in to the present and more present and more present, and I'm being saved in that state. Now, the idea of being saved indicates the idea of progression. Oh, you got to get this. Please, please get this. Please, please, please. Being saved can have the idea that I'm being saved more and more and more. Like, oh, yesterday, when I knelt at an altar, I was 1/16 saved. And then I've really been working on it, and now I'm 1/4 saved. Oh, and when I get to be, then I'm 1/2 saved. And when I get to be 95, I can see it happening, I'll be totally saved. Oh, that's not what he's saying. I am totally, 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 absolutely saved this moment. Rescued from the peril. A year goes by, and I'm totally, absolutely saved in that moment as well. So this doesn't, you don't get more. An example. This little baby. Oh, cute little thing. Aren't they all? They get over it, but aren't they all? You look at this little baby and say, he's only 1/32nd human. When he gets to be 6 years of age, then he'll be an 8th human. When he gets to be a teenager, he won't be human at all. And then all of a sudden he'll snap out of it and he'll be a half human. Just kidding, teenagers, just kidding. Thought they were going to rise up and throw something at me. We don't say that. Why? Because this baby is totally, will never, ever, ever be more human than he is right now. Well, he isn't all he's going to be. That's true. There's progression within the humanity. That's right. I mean, look what's happened to you. Oh, brother. So obviously there's an unfolding that's going on within the humanity, but he never becomes more human than he is. That's what he's trying to say to us here. That that's peril. Oh, I'm in this overwhelming peril, and the wonder of the prime mover, the Savior, Jesus himself came, grabbed a hold of me, yanked me out, and literally saved me, rescued me from the peril of all the guilt and all my own life and all my own selfishness, and literally rescued me, and I am saved, and I will never be more saved than I am right now. Will I know more? Yes. Will I embrace him tighter? Yes. Will he expand the revelation of his face? Yes. But I never will be more saved than I am right now. There is growth. You do not grow into salvation. You grow in salvation. So one primary question of this hour is, have you been rescued? Oh, I'm a good guy. That's wonderful. But these were all good guys who crucified Jesus. So have you been rescued? Well, I'm working on it. Well, I'm trying. Well, I'm making progress. No, you've missed the whole concept. This is the divine prime mover who reaches in and grabs you from the peril of your own circumstance, yanks you out of that, and brings you into a position of saved. And you will never be more saved than you are at that moment. Got to hurry. Now, the passive voice of all of this is that saved, those who are being saved, is in the passive voice, meaning that the subject is responsible for the action of the word. So the subject, which is the Lord, the verb, which is the added idea, and the saved idea, which is a participle giving content to the added, and the saved is in the passive voice, meaning that the subject is responsible, the subject is being acted upon, the subject of this clause, which is those, which is you in this case. You were being saved. You. So you are being acted upon, so you don't save yourself. He's just restating that all over again, that you do not save yourself. Well, don't I participate in it? Yes. Well, what is my participation? Well, we have the example of the whole chapter. Here's 3,000 to 5,000 Jews that are in this overwhelming peril. They're in this state of having crucified their Messiah, and they are in a total absolute mess because they've missed it, and their Messiah in their mind is dead. Peter stands up and says, wait a minute, that's not true. Let me tell you, he is alive, and you've got a second shot at this thing. Now, will you respond to the Savior? What do you want me to do? Nothing you can do. Will you respond? Well, how can I pay him back? Well, you could give me a check for $10,000. That would be a good beginning. But that won't help. Got to be honest, that won't help. You can't buy your way out of this. Come on, you got sense enough to know you can't pay this off. Well, what if I work hard? Fine, work hard, but you're not going to work your way back into this one. There's no chance. Well, what am I supposed to do? Respond. Which is exactly what he called them to do. Respond. Respond. In fact, they were to be baptized in the name of Jesus, which was not a formula that was to be spoken over the baptism. It was, you have crucified Jesus, now embrace Jesus, which was the whole repentance idea, which is phenomenal. And then he comes to this last one, which is the positive placement. They were added to the church. Now, it's really interesting. Oh, this is so awesome. It's really interesting. The word church is not there. Sorry. In the original language, in the Greek language, it's not there. It's the Greek word, the word church is literally the Greek word that they've translated church is autos, which is literally has to do with self or the same. And of course, they've interpreted it when they translated and said it's church. It's not bad. It's not even wrong. I mean, it's okay. It is the church. It's his church, but that's not technically the word. So if you were really going to be literal about the passage, it's, and the Lord added to himself. The Lord added to the same, himself. You have been added to the Lord. So when you join the church, you're really, the technical aspect of it is not an organization. It's really the idea of the Lord. You are being added to the Lord. So the whole issue of Christianity is all about your relationship and intimacy with the Lord. Jesus, you're my new location. It's not about a club. It's not about a civic organization. This is not about a membership roll. This is about you and me, isn't it? And this morning, we want to investigate. Oh, let me back up. We want you to investigate our relationship with you. And we want to start this morning in that investigation by clearly discovering whether we've been rescued from the peril of our life, and whether you have rescued us or not. And in the name of Jesus, if there's anyone in this place, oh God, we're not against them, we're for them. We're not here thinking we're better than they are. We're here identifying, knowing we've all been in the same spot. None of us have been any good. None of us have anything to boast of except you. And Lord, if there's anybody here today, would you remove all the rocks, all the barriers? Would you make this thing so smooth? Oh God, would you bring such an acceptance here of no criticism, such a smoothness of embrace, such a warmth of your presence, that there would be a freedom among us to express the need of our lives. And Lord, if there's anybody here today that hasn't been rescued, that you've not come to their life, grabbed a hold of them, yanked them out of the peril of their own self-will and their own guilt, would you do that today? Could they find themselves saved, rescued, embraced by you, intimate with you? Some of us here today, God, we are saved, but we've treated it lightly. We've got sloppy. We've been good, but we haven't been winsome. We haven't allowed you to create within us this gladness and simplicity which would spill into our world. We've been bogged down in all of the... We've claimed ownership of the church. The diversity has bothered us. The rocks haven't all been removed. We're not smooth. Would you speak to us today? Heads are bowed. Altars open. Place of response. Would you let him reach down into your life today and rescue you? Would you get out of your seat and kneel here? Be rescued by Jesus. Would you embrace him? Would you let him embrace you? In the name of Jesus. Would you become his? Would you allow him to remove the rocks and bring smoothness to your life? You're tired of the hassle. Sick of the upset. Moments of seeking. Moments of seeking. Be obedient.
Rescue